Hi, I'm Simon May. I'm a composer and I've written themes for TV like Eastenders, Howard's Way and El Dorado, as well as writing lots of songs that have thankfully got into the charts. And that's been my job for the last 40 years. I never thought at the time, 40 years ago, when I was writing the Eastenders theme, that because of the programme and its success, that the theme would itself become as well known as it has been. And obviously it's something I'm very proud and happy about. The whole creation of the Eastenders theme was a very interesting process, because the first theme I wrote, I'd been to BBC and Julia Smith and Tony Holland had shown me the set, shown me photos of the characters, and they gave me a very strong impression that Eastenders was going to be an unusually edgy programme. So my first attempt at the Eastenders theme was a reflection of that brief. And I created not a melodic kind of theme like the Eastenders theme is now, but a much edgier, atmospheric, dark theme, which I took to them. And when I started playing it to them on my Walkman, I could see from the glazed expression on their faces that they were not happy. And Julia said, "Simon, that's exactly the opposite of what we want." And I said, "Great, Julia, that's such a good brief, because I will now do exactly the opposite of what I brought you." So I went back home, and I think it was Julia's word. She said, "We want something that contrasts with the darkness and edginess of Eastenders. We want a theme that's memorable, that brings people in from the garden when they hear it on telly, or brings somebody in from the kitchen." So I knew that I was, on home territory, actually, because I'd like to think that one of my strengths as a composer is writing strong melodies. And so I created a chord sequence that I knew was tried and tested. There are only so many chord sequences that work in a pop song or a piece of music. And I took one of my favorite chord sequences, and I put that on top of a kind of a drum feel that was contemporary at the time. And then something I always do when I'm writing a theme, I have a backing track, and then I just get my right hand, and my right hand goes for a walk on the piano. And the correlation between what my fingers are doing and what my brain is thinking is working. And I can remember very, very clearly, I started just going up the scale. Ba, 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 ba. And that's pretty obvious. And then something that really pleased me was in my second theme, da 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 da, ba 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 ba. If you're going to the chord of G, you would expect the melody to go on a D, B, or a G, but I hit the C by mistake, literally. And I realized, hey, that's a great passing note. So instead of the theme being ba 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 ba, the theme went ba 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 ba, wrong note, so correct it up to a D. And that ba 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 ba, I think, is possibly one of the reasons that the theme is, well, certainly stronger than it would have been if I had followed the chords. I mean, one thing that absolutely thrilled me, I remember when Eastenders first came out, honestly, I would go for a walk and pass a building site, and the guys on the building site would be literally whistling the Eastenders melody, or go into the supermarket and the girls on the till were humming, not because I asked them to, but they were just singing the Eastenders theme. And I think in a kind of way, that's what helped to make the identity of the show. The show in itself obviously is fantastic, but the theme should service the programme. Nearly every songwriter, composer would agree that some of the best things they've written have been mistakes, unintended. And the whole drum fill was not planned, it wasn't intended. When I'm writing a TV theme, even now, I write the long version for two reasons. One is a commercial one, that the theme can then have its own long version released as a single. And secondly, because that gives me as a composer much more freedom. You can turn a story, a novel, into a novelette, but you can't do it the other way around. You can't write a 30-second theme and expand it as easily as you can write a 3-minute version and take the best of it. So in that context, I wrote a 3-minute theme of EastEnders, a kind of opening section, which is basically what the opening titles is. And then I knew I was going to end up with what could be the end titles, but I just wanted to have a bit of fun in the middle. So I created, as a diversion, a good old-fashioned Cockney, sort of Winifred Atwill type of Russ Conway, you know, very old-fashioned. And it was complete contrast with the drum feel of the main titles. But I realized after the middle section, I had to get back to the end titles and get back to the same meter and the same tempo and feel as the main theme. And the only way I could think of doing it was by smoke and mirrors. So Graham Broad, amazing drummer on the session, I said, Graham, what we need is a distraction for a whole bar. So when we come out of the can you create a lovely drum fill, maybe for a whole bar, maybe reflecting the EastEnders melody, da 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 da, dum 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 dum, and that distraction, sort of, how can I put it? It merged the middle section into the end titles, and what was so lucky, and it was an accident, Julia Smith and Tony Holland came into the studio just as my engineer was mixing the tom fill, and all they could hear was doo, 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 doo. And they said, "Simon, is that going into the end titles? How very clever of you." And I said, "Oh yeah, that's going to be the opening of the end titles," which of course I hadn't intended, but a beautiful accident, and it's kind of stayed with us all, hasn't it, for a long time. I'm not ashamed to say I'm proud of EastEnders. I never ever thought it would be as well known and lasting as it has been, and that's not because of the music, the theme. It's because EastEnders has remained a beautifully written and well produced and well acted and directed and edited show.